G'day everyone. This video is about some of the changes between the old 23andMe experience and the new experience. Around about November 2015, 23andMe announced that it was going to transition its customers to the new experience. As an outsider, my impression was that the transition did not appear to have been prepared fully, and so the implementation was glacially slow. In preparation for the transition, referred to as the rapture by some customers, more and more of the old genetic genealogy tools were closed down. The tool that was most universally mourned was the Countries of Ancestry tool. For anyone interested in genetic genealogy, it was the duck's guts. Fast forward to nearly a year and a half later, when most, perhaps nearly all, US customers had been transitioned, and the first tranche of foreign customers received a notification that they were going to be transitioned. I was one of the lucky foreign customers. So that you've got some idea of where I'm coming from, I'm going to give you a quick tour around some of my old ancestry composition screenshots, and also my mother's. I was fortunate enough to be able to test my mother a few more months before she died, and so my results are phased against hers, and hers are reverse phased against mine. This is what my ancestry composition looks like in the old 23andMe. The British and Irish accounts for 76.3% and can be found on just about all my chromosomes apart from the X. The French and German is that quite distinctive shade of blue you can see on chromosomes 12, 14 and 16. Scandinavian accounted for 2.5% on chromosomes 6, 8, 10 and 22. The Sardinian accounts for 0.4% and it sits on chromosome 7. Finally, there is 0.1% Yakut, which is on chromosome 5. For those of you who are not familiar with the name, Yakut, they are one of the indigenous Siberian tribes, and they speak a Turkic language. Next, here is my mother's speculative ancestry composition. British and Irish accounted for 67% of her ancestry. French and German accounted for 7.8% of her ancestry. She had 2.5% Scandinavian and 0.3% Finnish. And here is the 0.4% Sardinian she bequeathed me. 23andMe also assigned her 0.1% broadly sub-Saharan African, which you can see in red on chromosome 13. That brings us to the new experience. There are arguably two new experiences, the one you get on a desktop computer monitor and that which you get on a mobile device. I've taken my screenshots using a desktop as that is easier, but as you'll see, some of them have what can only be described as a crappy display. Here we see my ancestry composition in the new experience. On a mobile device you can actually see an outline of all the continents. The pie chart is also less informative than the pie chart was on the old experience. If you click on the link to see all 31 tested populations, that won't fill the map for you, which it used to do in the old experience. On the plus side, the frequently asked questions do address questions that I have often seen in the forums. You might notice that some of the numbers shown here are not quite the same as those from the old experience. There are two reasons for the difference. The first reason is that the confidence level used here is 50%, not the 51% that was used in the old experience. I think they've also tweaked the algorithms they use. The reason why I think there has been an algorithm tweak is that my Yakut has gone from 0.1% to less than 0.1%, as has my mother's sub-Saharan African. However, my other sub-regional percentages have increased. In the old experience, there were three confidence levels: conservative, which corresponded to 90%, standard, which corresponded to 75%, and speculative, which corresponded to 51%. Instead, customers now have more confidence levels from which to choose. The choices are 50, 60, 70, 80 and 90%. I'll start out with the 90% confidence level and take you through the options until we get to the lowest level. This is the new equivalent of the old speculative ancestry. For me, the most immediately visible difference is that there's a little French and German on the X chromosome. My mother's new ancestry composition is, like mine, similar but not identical to her old speculative composition. The next new feature in the new experience is the ancestry timeline. To be honest, when I first saw it, I thought that it was gimmicky rather than of any particular use. I did, however, follow the links to learn more about how they calculate the numbers. As you can see in my case, although I have rather less Scandinavian ancestry than French and German, they claim that my Scandinavian ancestor was more recent. By contrast, in my mother's case, they're shown as equal. You might notice that my mother's African ancestry doesn't get a mention in the ancestry timeline. I'd say this is because her African ancestry is assigned to broadly sub-Saharan African rather than a regional grouping. Okay, I think I've squeezed all the juice out of ancestry composition that I want to. Let's move on to the Neanderthal ancestry. To tell the truth, it was probably the Neanderthal ancestry information that tipped the balance that led to me getting tested with 23andMe in the first place. In the old 23andMe, I was assigned 2.8% Neanderthal and described as 64th percentile of all users. My mother had 2.5% and was in the 16th percentile of all European users. I didn't take a screenshot of that, so you'll just have to believe me. Again, they seem to have used somewhat different algorithms to calculate the new Neanderthal percentages. I am now rated as having more Neanderthal variants than 87% of their current customer base. Another new feature I like is this. I can see where on my chromosomes the Neanderthal variants are. I'd like it even better if the display on a desktop monitor were better and if, like ancestry composition, the results were phased. In the old 23andMe, I could see a chromosome display of the ancestry composition of the people with whom I was sharing. So far, this is not available in the new experience, or if it is available in Share and Compare, it takes approximately forever to load. In the old experience, I had up to 1,000 DNA relatives, except, for reasons I do not understand, the number crept down to about 816. I now have, at last count, 1,409 DNA relatives. In theory, it could go up to almost 2,000. A tool that might be seen as a cousin of the late lamented Countries of Ancestry tool has been added into DNA relatives. This tool lists the people among your DNA relatives who share DNA with both you and another relative you have selected from your list. Here, for example, is a list of people who are related to both me and a second cousin on my maternal grandfather's side of the family. This tool definitely has potential, although I would find it more useful if I could get the data exported to Excel. And finally, here is a report I would like to see. Thank you for watching.